Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. Let's make a beautiful rifle scabbard. Now, we've done a rifle scabbard in the past, but we're going to do this one a little bit differently. For those of us without a horse, let's do a shoulder carry. And we're going to use two leathers that look like they were made to go together, are embossed, and a beautiful English bridle. Now, this is a little bit more of an intermediate project. Less explanation, more doing. But if you're new to the craft, there is no reason you cannot make this beautiful scabbard. All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com, or check below. We've got links there, going to take you straight to the website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's step over to our pattern table, get started. We've got digital pics of our pattern. We'll look at those shortly, but we're going to talk about what we're doing. It's going to help everything fall right into place. So like I said, we've done a rifle scabbard before. We're going to use the same body pattern. But on that, we had two oblongs high, two oblongs low for our strapping. We're going to drop those and add a billet, both on our throat and our tip. We've got marks here for our slotted concho and bleed knot. We'll talk about that. And then our overlay. We're going to come down 6 inches and come up 7 inches. On our strapping, we've got a buckle side, tongue side. We're going to cut two of our billets. Right here, we've got a piece of 1/2 inch by 12 inch. Let's go with a 3 to 4 ounce, something softer. That's for our bleed knot. And then we've got just one keeper for our buckle. Okay, over to our digital pick. So again, our main body's not going to change from our original design, but now we're going to drop in our overlay. We're going to come in 6 inches from the top, 7 inches from the bottom. We've got our marks there for our oblongs, for our slotted concho, and we've got the holes for our billets, both on the throat and the tip. Now, the one thing that's going to look good here, inside of each of our scallops, we're going to drop in a rivet. That's going to look nice, okay? On our strapping, on our main strapping, 1 inch wide by 23 on our buckle side, by 28 on our tongue side. Again, we need to cut two of our billets. There's our two pieces of 3 to 4 ounce, 1/2 inch by 12 inch. And then we just need one keeper for our buckle. All right, so we know what's going on here, but here's one thing that's cool. If we want to turn this project into two, we've done a beautiful rifle sling. That would be a nice touch. All right, let's step over to our main table, cut some leather. We've got two leathers here that are going to be gorgeous together. First off, this is our embossed leather. This is the Western floral, and the color is cognac. Great point here. We sell this in smaller cuts. We don't have to buy a large piece of leather to complete this project, but it's almost a perfect match to our Shaheen Leather English Bridle Havana, my favorite color and one of my favorite leathers. Now, this is a 9 to 10 ounce. That's a little bit heavy for our body. Great for our strapping, but on the body, it's going to give our firearm good protection. But at the same time, this is going to feel like a quality project. All right, so let's start by cutting our English bridle. We've got a big piece of leather here. Never going to get all of this in the shot. This is a back, but a good point. On the English bridle, we sell this in double shoulders as well. If we've got a smaller shop, that may be the way to go. Now, to save us some time, I busted a straight edge into this. So I'm going to set my wooden strap cutter at 1 inch, and I've got more than enough length to get both of our longer straps and two of our billets. Good, we've got that. Okay, let's cut to size. We've got those, okay. Let's reset, cut our main body. Let's work this right down here. We've got a pretty spot there. Good, let's lay that in. In fact, I'm going to lay my straight edge on top of that just to make sure that doesn't move around. Now let's trace this. Good, we've got that mark, okay. New blade or sharp blade every time. And for our long straight lines, let's use our straight edge. We've got one on either side, one right here at the tip. And we've got that piece cut. Now, dark brown, a little bit hard to see, but that's going to change, okay? Reset. Let's take care of the edges on our strapping. On our strapping, we're going to groove both sides on our top grain. Then with a number 2 edger, we're going to do all 4 edges. And the last thing we'll do here, let's use our awl to mark. So, groover, set it 1/8 of an inch. Very nice groove. Okay, over to a number 2 edger. We've got our 2 sides on our top grain. Let's flip this over, edge the back side. But this will never edge as easy as the top grain, but the English Bridle, not bad. Last up, let's mark our holes. Now right here, where we're going to connect to our D-ring on our billet, we're going to use 2 Chicago screws. Make that very secure. So let's mark all of our holes. Good, we've got that piece. All right, I'm going to do the same thing to these 3 pieces. We've got those marked. Okay, let's step over to our punch table, drop in some round holes and some end punches. First up, let's go with our billets. So right here, we're going to drop in a 1-inch round punch on both ends. And we're going to use Chicago screws. So let's go with a 3/16 inch round hole punch. We've got 6 holes. Okay, those are almost ready to assemble. Next up, and I like to keep my patterns with these just in case. I want to make sure I put my English punch and my oblongs in the right place. But right here, we've got 6 size holes. Let's go with a 3/16 inch. Good. On this end, let's go with a 1-inch English punch. And on the other end, the 1-inch round end punch. Okay, and our last piece, right here, we're going to drop in an oblong, and then we're going to do a round end on both ends. Okay, we've got that. Now our round holes on both of these pieces. Good. Let's step back over to our main table, cut out our overlay leather. On our overlay leather, we can take our pattern and we can be as efficient as we want to. I can drop that right down in that corner. We've got virtually no waste. Or we've got a really cool design here. I've got a center line on my pattern. So let's just do our best to see if we can't center, there we go, center that design on our overlay. Now we've got a great leather marking pen. This is a big help. We can mark leather, but then it will rub right off. Well, actually on this leather, we've got a little more help here because let's flip this over. Yeah, there we go. Now I can see that pattern right there. Now we can mark this with our pen. Let's get that as even as we can, because what we'll do is on this edge, we're going to cut that right to pattern. But we're going to cut the balance a little bit over, maybe 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch. We'll glue that on and then we'll trim that. But by marking it, we know exactly where this is going to lay down on our main body. So let's mark this with a pen. Good, we've got that. Okay, so right here, let's cut this line to the pattern, then we'll overcut around. Okay, we've got that piece and that looks pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing for the tip. Good, okay, we've got our two pieces. Now, when we punch our scalloped edge, it's going to be a lot easier to see this on this side as opposed to the top grain just because of our pattern. So let's take a pen or our leather marking pen. Let's drop that in with our center line. Let's just get a good mark right on the center. Good, we've got that marked on the center. Okay, let's take this over to our punch table, punch in our scalloped edge. We're going to go with a 3/4 inch round end punch. Go with whatever you've got. If you want to go with a larger or smaller, absolutely. So right here, we've got our center mark. I'm going to take the tool. I'm going to do my best to get that wing right on that center line. And again, it does not have to be absolutely perfect. But right there, I'm going to scoot that back to where we have just a little distance. Good. Okay, and I'm going to work my way out to the edge. Now, when we get out to the edge, let's just leave that little piece. We'll trim that off. I'm going to do the same thing in the other direction. Okay, we've got that. We'll trim that piece off. Now let's do the same thing on the tip. Okay, we've got that back to our main table. Let's attach these to our main body. First off, let's clip off the excess here. So right there, I can spread that and see exactly where that cut is. Let's just come straight out. Good, we've got those two pieces. All right, now on our main body, we need to make some marks here. So from our pattern, right here, I've got a line, 7 inches from the bottom, 6 inches from the top of the throat. We've got a mark there. So what we'll do with our leather marking pen, I'm going to drop in a mark on both sides, both ends. Okay, now with this, we've got our marks, but we don't want to scribe a line here. Here's what I'm talking about. We're going to lay these in right there. So we're not going to glue into our scallops. We'll have rivets holding those down. But if we scribe a line here, we add glue, we'll be able to see that. Here's where I'm going with that. Let's come in away from the center. Let's just come in 3/4 of an inch, make a mark. Same on this side, 3/4 inch, make a mark. Same down here. And 3/4 of an inch. Okay, now let's take our scribe and let's scribe a line there. So we've got a line there, scribe the same line down here. Good, we've got our two lines scribed in. Now let's do this. Let's just make this a little bit easier because when we glue this, we're going to glue from this side with the top grain down. So again, let's make two marks. Same place. Yeah, there we go. That'll make it much easier for us to get that very even. All right, let's reset here, add some glue. Let's go with our S18 contact cement. Now, our glue, no problem on our flesh side, but over on the top grain here, it'll stick but not great. Let's go with one of our roughers. Now with this, I'm just gonna rough inside this line down to the end. But we've got a little room for error there. If we go over that line, it's no problem. But let's scribe, or let's rough our leather. Now I want to get up to our edges, but I don't want to get too rough coming off the edge. I don't want fuzz around there. Okay, we've got our outside edges. Let's just rough across. And there we go. That's about all we need. We just want to give our glue the best opportunity for a good bond. So I'm going to do the same thing on this end. Good, that's all we really need. Roughed right to our edges and to our line. Now, we've got a heavy duty rougher. This will absolutely rough the leather, but for a project like this, not terribly necessary. Okay, so we're gonna step over to our glue. We're gonna add glue to both of our overlays, to our throat and our tip. Now, right here, we're gonna go right to the line, but I wanna make sure I get right to the edge. And over here, I wanna make sure I go over the edge that we've marked there. Right along here, we just need a line inside of our scallops. And just fill in. Good, we've got glue on everything, all right. Let's give this glue about 5 minutes, let it set. 5, maybe 10 minutes and our glue is set. So let's start right here. Well, actually the first step here is let's make sure that end of our table is clean so that when we flip this over, our glue doesn't pick up a lot of debris. So we've got our line marked, but we also have our 2 little lines right here. So let's just do our best to get that as even as we can. And there we go. Okay, same on the other end. And we've got those. Okay, let's take our roller. Now this is the wider roller. And let's just make sure we press that down right to the edge. And it feels and looks like we've got a good bond. Okay, so let's flip this over. Now, new blade or sharp blade every time, but particularly here, let's trim our overlay and let's use the main body as our straight edge. And good, we've got that cut. In fact, we've got a nice edge on that, okay? So, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna sew the throat and the tip. We're just gonna sew down our overlay here to secure it. But down here on this end, we're just gonna sew 2 inches out on either side of our stitch line because when we bring this together, we'll sew down to that point. So on our pattern, I've got our 2 marks, 2 inches, either side of our center line. So let's lay that in. Let's just mark that enough to where we can see it. Okay, good. Now let's take this over to our cub, drop in a stitch line. And over to my shop, we're actually going to sew this 2 different ways. We're going to use our cub sewing machine to sew on our throat and our tip, our overlays. But then when we bring this together, we're going to hand sew that. We got a couple issues. Much longer project. Not really an issue because we can spin that in our cub to get a back stitch. Bigger problem though, we're going to have a large billet with a D-ring here, a hard bend, and thicker leather. So we're just going to hand sew this together. Now when we bring it together, that will be the end of the incoming stitch line where we bring it around. So on our cub, we're going to start 1 stitch off. Now this is a great chance to get a good look at our cub for us leather crafters. It's a heavyweight machine that's not going to break the bank, super easy to sew with, and it's going to give us a really pretty stitch. So I'm going to start 1 stitch off. Okay, good. Now let's just sew around. And notice how easy this sews. I am barely putting pressure on the crank, and we're getting a very pretty stitch line. And let's go 1 stitch off, but notice how easy that is and how pretty that stitch line is. Now, one thing to remember here, we're going to tie knots on both sides. There's no stress on this thread, so let's make sure we just have plenty of extra thread there. Good, there we go. Okay, on this end, we're simply going to sew between our 2 white marks. And there we are. Now, the biggest problem with a project like this, making sure we have a table that's clean enough to where we don't rake everything off as we spin with this. And again, right here, let's leave ourselves plenty of thread for a knot. Okay, back over to our main cutting table. Let's start by tying our knots. So right here, all I have to do is I can pull up on this back piece. There's my front stitch. We can pull that through. Good, now let's just tie a small square knot on all 4 ends. Okay, we've got that. Now we've got 2 decisions to make here. First off, how are we going to carry this? So right here, I've got this set up to carry this on my left shoulder, stock out. Now this can be confusing. Here's the easiest way to figure this out. Let's just fold our pattern around, let's clip it, actually put it on our back. Where do we want the outside or the decoration? Well, the billets are naturally going to be opposite of that. So let's do this. Let's take one of our marking pens. Embossed leather is so hard to mark, but this makes it so easy. So let's mark there and there. Good. Okay, now, while we've got this on the table, let's go ahead and mark for our conchos because this is going to be the second decision we make. Good. We've got that marked. All right. Let's step over to our punch table, punch some holes. If we're going to put this on a saddle or we want to display this horizontally, I'd like for my bleed knot lace to hang down. On ours, if we want to carry this on our back or just hang it on a hook, I would like that bleed knot lace to hang lengthwise. So what we're going to do is we've got a little slotted concho here. If we want this to hang out, we're going to have to put an oblong inside and out. If we want it to hang lengthwise, above and below. That'll make more sense here in just a second. But we're going to use our slotted berry concho, and notice, matching buckles to go with those. So right here, we've got our 2 marks. Our spread there, really about 3/8 of an inch is enough, and we're going to use an oblong punch. Now that's a 1/2 inch width there, but I'm going to give it a little more space. I'm going to go with a 5/8 inch. So let's punch high and low just on either side of our mark. And there we go. That's going to look good, but also too, we've got these in multiple sizes. We could always go with 1.5 inch on both or 1 inch, whatever. But how about we do this? Let's go with a 1.5 inch and then a 1 1/4. That proportionally is going to look good. All right, let's reset, drop in our round holes for our rivets and for our billets. Now, I've somewhat rubbed off our marks for our billet holes. I can see them, not sure the camera can, but it's a good point. When these dry, if we need to erase those, just a small rag with a little moisture will take care of that. So for our 4 Chicago screws, we've got 2 here, 2 on our throat. Let's go back to our 3/16 inch punch. Okay, we've got those punched in. Now, for our rivet holes, we're going to go with an 1/8 inch round hole punch. We could mark these on our pattern, but since I punched these by hand, they'll never line up. So we're just going to eyeball this. But what I'd like to do, we've got the top of our cuts. I want to center our punch right on that. Good. Let's work our way across. Okay, we've got that. I'm going to do the same thing on this end. Good, we've got that. Now, since we're here, let's just reset, drop in our rivets. We're going to go with a medium double cap rivet or the 5/16 in the antique nickel. Now, this is a medium. We've got a 9 to 10 and a 2 to 3. This is a little bit long for that, but not too much. But another point, I like to punch my hole small enough to where the rivet is snug in that hole. That way we can put in all the posts, flip it over all the caps. Yeah, not happening on the 1/8 of an inch, but that's okay. Let's do this. Let's just drop in a post. Great thing about the double caps, we can snap that cap down without setting it. We'll get them all ready to go, and then we'll set all the way across. And our last one. Okay, now, these are a little bit longer. So what I'd like to do is do my best to keep this setter straight up and down. This is from our 4-piece rivet setter set. That's a great buy, something great to have in our shop. So let's just do our best. Straight down. Good. All right. That actually looks pretty good. Nice. I'm going to do the same thing on this end. And that looks good. Very nice. Okay. Back to our main table. Let's drop in our conchos and our billets. Before we add our billets and our conchos, while everything's still flat and easy to put a pattern on, let's do this. Since we're going to hand sew this, what I would like is 2 marks on this, directly parallel to each other. We'll start our chisel line, chisel out from there. That means everything's going to line up nicely. So, love our shipping paper, makes a great prototype pattern. But with this, what I can do is fold this over, push my awl through that. Now I've got an easy mark. Everything's going to line up nicely. Now I need to transfer that over to my pattern, and I eventually will do that. But right here, let's just, with our marking pen, let's mark that. Good. Okay, so we've got that. Now for our bleed knot, right here I've got 2 pieces of leather. This is our Pines milled. We sell this in smaller panels. It's a lighter weight, chrome tan, but we can go all kinds of ways with this. If we went with a beige, that would be nice. I almost want to go with a turquoise. That would bring this full on Southwestern. But right here, we're just going to match this. So right here, 1/2 inch by 12, off of our center line, I've got a 3/4 inch spread, then a 3/4 inch slit. So let's start. I've tapered the ends. We're going to come through either side, high or low, doesn't matter. Then let's come back through. Good. Okay, I can see my slits right there. So on the higher, we're going to go with a 1.5 inch. Okay, we've got that. Now, let's take our front piece. We're going to go through the slit in the back piece. Let's even that out. Okay, good. Now let's take what is now the front piece and go through the back piece. Good, there we go. Now let's even that out a little bit. And give that a little pressure. Okay, good. And we can make as many slits as we want to, but we can also reverse that. If we go with our flesh side out, then we're just going to have a little touch of our top grain there. But that looks good. Do the same thing on the second. And give that a little pressure. Okay, our bleed knots look good. Let's reset. Add our billets. We're going to use Chicago screws to secure our billet. That's going to give us some good strength. Now, we'll use 2 different sizes here, 3/8 of an inch and a 1/4 inch. That'll make sense here in just a second. And on our D-rings, we're going to go with a 1 inch welded D, antique nickel, to match our hardware. Now, since we're going to have a gun in this, what I would like to do is have the smooth side of our screw in. So let's do this. On our higher of the 2 holes, let's take our 3/8 of an inch, bring that through. On the lower 2 holes, or the lower hole, let's bring our 1/4 inch through, okay? So let's take our billet. We've got our spread right here. Put our D on that. Then we're going to secure that down right there. So we've got 2-ply billet there. Then down here, we've just got the 1-ply for our 1/4 inch Chicago screw. Now, I don't want these to come out. So let's do this. Let's take a good bit of our glue. Let's drop that down in the throat of both. Okay, we've got that. Now, great thing about the screws from Weaver, we've got a slot here for an Allen wrench. So right here, let's drop that down, bring this piece around, And we're going to have to press, again, with a little bit heavy leather here, but let's press that down, drop in a screw. And I can feel that. That is absolutely secure. Good. Okay, now the 1/4 inch. Good. Now maybe just a little extra tight on both of those, but I can feel them. That is secure. Very nice. I'm going to do the same thing to the throat. But one point I want to mention, let's make sure our D is pointed up or towards the throat of our scabbard. We've got that, and again, that feels secure too. Okay, another quick reset. Let's work on our edges. Since we're going to hand sew this, we're going to drop in a groove line. Now, I typically set this at 1/8 of an inch, but I'm coming in a little bit further, 3/16 of an inch, because right there, that stitch is in just a little bit, and I'd like it to match. Also, we're going through some pretty thick leather. Now, when we groove here, I'm going to start right where our stitch ends there, and I'm going to come down right to where our stitch starts or stops there. Now, that's a much thinner leather, softer. We don't actually need to groove that. We just need enough of a groove in that to where we can see and we have a guide for our sewing. Good, we've got a nice groove line on that. Okay, so with our number 2 edger, let's edge between our 2 overlays. All right, we've got that. Next step, let's step down to a number 1, because what I'm going to do is edge both of our overlays. Now, again, thinner, softer leather, it's not going to edge well, but really all I'm looking to do is knock off that hard top edge. Okay, we've got that. Now, next up, let's come back here. So when we sew this together, we're going to sew this between this point and this point. So we don't want to edge there because we want our pieces to come together, have a good clean edge. But what I would like to do is less edge literally along our stitch line, both on the tip and the throat. And that's all we need. Okay, let's go drop in a chisel line. We've got our 2 marks here, so we're going to center the first tine and work out on both sides. So down here, we're going to work down around the corner. We're going to stop just shy of that stitch line, and up here on the top or the throat, we're going to start there, and we're just going to chisel down to stop just short of that stitch. So we're going to go with the 1/8 inch flat chisel, one of my all-time favorites. It's going to give us a very clean, very strong stitch line. But we've got a thicker piece of leather here. So I might say, let's step back down to our 4 tine, and in all honesty, we may move a little bit faster because the problem isn't going through, it's coming back out. So I'm going to do my best to center that chisel. There we go. I'm going to run my finger across the bottom just to make sure, yeah, there we go, just to make sure I've got that through. All right, let's work that out easily, and let's work our way up to the throat. And just 2 more there. Okay, good. Now we could move a little faster with our 6, but notice how easily that comes out. All right, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And 2 more to finish that out. Nice. This is going to go together well. All right, we're going to start here. We're going to chisel down right to the end of that stitch line. Good, we've got that. Okay, gonna do the same thing on the other side. And that comes out just as clean as the other side. Very nice. Now, this is a project with a lot of steps to it. Well, first off, absolutely worth it. But secondly, the good news, all we have to do is drop in a stitch line, add some strapping, and we're done here. We're going to step over to our sewing pony here in just a minute, but we need to get this bent around and we need to get 4 or 5 stitches in it so it'll fit in our sewing pony. We just need to get a good start. So we're going to go old school. This is my original sewing pony. Do you believe that? It's just 2 2x4s and 2 carriage bolts. But I keep it in the shop specifically for projects like this. So let's take our scabbard. Let's bend it around. There we go. Now I can just sit that down in there. Good. It's not going to ding my leather. So right here, I've got our John James number 18 needles, one of my favorite sewing needles. And then our thread, we're going to go with the Rissa. This is the 0.8 millimeter. It's going to be a good match to the thread we used in our sewing machine. So right here, let's find, good, there's our marked hole. Let's come through, and there's the other marked hole. There we are. Okay, so let's pull this through, and let's crank down on that. There we go. Now, we'll have to get a couple of stitches in before that starts to stick where we need it. But let's do that. Going to pull through, doing just a simple saddler's stitch. And there we are. We've got about 5 stitches in that. Good. Now, we could absolutely glue this. We could clamp it. But really, that's the easiest way to go. Okay, now let's step over to our sewing pony. Now we can open up the prongs on our pony, and that just slides right through. So let's bring that down to about right there. Clamp that in. Good. Okay. Now let's sew all the way down to our stitch line. Now we're getting down towards the end here. We could certainly sew this on the cup, be a lot faster, but the bigger point here is for the newer folks. We don't have to have a sewing machine to put in a very pretty stitch line. So now as we get down to the end here, let's go through our second to the last hole, or technically that's our last hole, but what we're going to do now is we've actually got the hole punched by the sewing machine. That's more than enough hole there to get our needles through. So let's come back, but let's don't tighten that down just yet. Okay, now second thing, I typically go about 4, maybe 4.5 times my length. But with this thicker leather, we've got about 3/8 of an inch spread there. So maybe 5 times our length. All right, so we're back there. Now let's come back down to our last chisel hole. Let's bring our needle through. Same on this side. Again, let's turn this around because now, get our needles off. All right, let's pull one side taut, pull the other side taut. Good. Now both together, let's pull those tight. And we're going to drop in a square knot. So right over left, left over right. Let's pull that down good and tight. Okay, with our knife, I'm going to pull our thread across the blade instead of cutting into the leather. There we go. Okay, so we've got that end done. See if we can slide this through. Yeah, there we go. Well, that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to do the same thing going to this end. We're going to bring that right around. Now, I don't typically use a clip because a lot of clips are going to give us an impression in our leather. It's going to ding our leather. But if we need to, when we get down here, we can put a clip on our chrome. That's not really going to ding that. But that's only if we need to, okay? So I'm going to start here, work my way down. And there we go. All right, just like the other end, I'm going to come 1 stitch past our last chisel hole. I'm going to go through our last sewn hole with the machine. Then let's back up. What I'd like to do is push my needle down and inside, so that's where our knot will be. Good, we've got that. And again, we want to pull these one at a time. Give that some good tension. And then both. And there we go. We've got a nice meet there all the way down. So again, square knot right here. Let's force that down in there as much as we can. And there we are. All right, let's clip that thread with our knife. And again, I'm going to pull the thread across the needle. Good, so we don't cut into our project. All right, let's add our strapping. All we have to do here is drop in our buckle. Now, I would love to go with this decorative buckle. That looks so good with our conchos, but we're going to have some good weight on this, so I'd prefer to go with a buckle that's a little more substantial. Right here, this is just our flat buckle. It's the 1 inch, and we're going with the antique nickel. But now we're going to have a keeper. So to save us a little time, I've made a keeper. Now, this is too thick for our keeper, but we can always skive it down, which is what I've done here. Or if we want to go with veg tan, the chocolate pro dye is almost a perfect match. So let's slide this on. We're going to go back to the medium, or technically the 5/16 inch double cap. Okay, that's done. Let's go knock these on and we're finished here. And our last step, we're going to add our straps. So on our throat, we're going to take our tongue strap. We're going to flip this over and come around. There we go. That will sit right there. I'll add 2 1/4 inch screws there. And down on the bottom, let's come up from the bottom, wrap around, and there we go. 2 screws right there. And all our holes are lining up nicely. Good, we've got a good pattern, and we took our time with that. Crank that down, very nice. All right, let's clean up here, see how our rifle fits. Perfect fit, snug, comfortable, protected. Again, we've got a little heavier leather here, but that's good protection. Now, at the risk of making this video even longer, we could edge coat, edge dye, edge paint, slick our edges, and right here, I almost wish we'd gone this way. Well, my first thought is camping trips, hunting trips, but if we add a top coat to this English Bridle, look at that. A little bit of gloss here, a little bit of gloss here. That would look good. Now, we've got a rifle scabbard. Looks good, absolutely, but with this combination of leathers, how about purse, bag, pouch, journal cover? We've got this English Bridle in a lighter weight. Can't wait to get started on some of those. We've got a comfortable, durable rifle scabbard. It's going to be good protection for our weapon, and it looks good. The only thing now, I need a walnut stock. I'm going to get right on that. But I hope you have a great time designing and making your rifle scabbard, and I hope it comes out beautifully. Good luck with your projects.